So let's start off with our commands that we need to know to complete this room. What are some of the commands that we need to know? CD, yep. Just a reminder, CD is change directory. Okay. LS. And that's going to list the contents of a folder. Okay. Similar to that, how would we list the contents of a file or read a file? Cat, yes. That one hung you guys up a ton. So just try to remember that one. And again, I would highly suggest creating a Google Doc of, they give you like those tables of commands. Just copy those right over to a Google Doc. List contents of a file. Cool. Any other ones that we learned yesterday that are helpful today? Man command. Yeah, we learned that one. We kind of went ahead, but the manual command will allow you to see the manual and find out what different flags and stuff there are. Okay. So a couple just tips. If you mess up a command and I guess I'll demonstrate it. I'll screw up a command here. So if I'm in my terminal and I just type in cat, for example, and it does this, this might have happened to you and you probably like totally closed it out just so you can get a new terminal. All you have to do is end that command. So in order to do that, if you hit Control-C, it escapes out of there. Okay, so you're going to need to know that one. You're going to have to remember that one because you'll fat finger a command like you copy it from a website, and you're going to have like a bunch of text here, and you're not going to know like what's going on. Why does this do this? It's just putting it right back because it's waiting to find out what the rest of the command is. It would be like me saying move seat, but not telling you where to move to. Okay, it's just saying where. What do you want me to do here?
If you
so.
Were to put it there, would it finish the command?
What's that?
If you were to put where would you move the seat there? It would finish the command.
It is here, yeah. That's why I'm typing in llama, and then it's just repeating whatever I say back to me. So we're currently in the cat command, but it's just going to constantly repeat.
So if you're going to go like cat enter and then important enter into work, and give you the contents of the.
No, it shouldn't. It'll just
Okay.
spit it back out because you're saying read back to me the word important.
Right. Okay.
You're not actually telling it to read important.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, thank you.
So in this case, we are on Linux 2. So let me exit this real quick. Oops. Can I exit any further? Okay. So another thing that you need to know is, let's say you have all this crap on your screen and you don't want it there anymore. You want a clean workspace. You can type in clear, and it's going to clear that out for you. Okay. You'll also notice here that my text went to green. That tells me that I'm back on the attack box. Like we first started off talking about this room, we knew that we were going to have to SSH into another machine. So in this case, it is this 10.10.131.239 that we started up. That's what we're SSHing into. Okay, so this is very common when you are doing any type of, even like web servers, getting into any Unix or Linux server or hardware. So you'll do the same thing when you're going into switches, network switches. Okay, you're going to have to SSH into them. So the first thing, let's proceed. Okay, we got our first thing done there. We're doing well. Okay, so we can see here that we want to go from our home computer to our Linux server. In this case, just 2 virtual machines. We have it all started up, so we're understanding what's going on. And a reminder, Telnet is not encrypted, and it goes in plain text, where SSH is going to be encrypted. So what do we have to type in order to get to our machine? What do we have to type in to do to SSH into our machine? Yep.
Actually add and then the IP address that you're trying to get into.
At 10.10.131.239. Okay. So why do we have to put TryHackMe first?
Because that's the account.
That is the account, or that's the user that we want to log in as. What happens if we were to type root here? Root at 10 dot blah blah blah. We would log in as the root user, okay? So we don't have that root password, so we're going to log in as TryHackMe because we know that password. I'm going to hit enter. Now, I've already logged into this machine, so I didn't get the RSID notification, and that's part of the security of creating that secure tunnel. You're getting a piece of information on the local machine. That's what that RSID token. And we dig a lot deeper into those when we get into more of the Security Plus content. But for now, you would just have to type in yes to accept that when you do this, okay? From here, we enter our password. So it's, see, now I messed up, TryHackMe. So now you'll notice as I'm typing in that password, what happened?
It didn't show up.
It didn't show up. And that is a security, it's by design. So that way nobody can be over your shoulder trying to figure out what your password is. Okay, so I entered in TryHackMe, and boom, I see today's message of the day, which is all of this information here. So have you guys heard of message of the day before, MOTD? So message of the day is whenever you would log into a server, there would be a piece of information, and it could be check your mail, current events, what's going on. In this case, it's information about the actual server itself. So this one here, this message is just what's going on in this machine. So how much, what the system load is and whatnot. But on your servers, once you get into that IT world, you can set this. So you can say no authorized access. You can give people information on where to find stuff because everybody's going to see this when they log in. Okay. So we got our machine started. We're doing good. We're off to a good start. Completed. Introducing flags and switches. Okay, so let's look at our table of commands. Does this one have the table, or does it just go through them? It just goes through all the different commands. So we talked about a couple of these yesterday, but this is going to go, we talked about actually flags and stuff a little bit yesterday. So ls, if you just type ls, it's going to give you the listing, right? Now, if we add flags to that, this is more basically saying we want things in a certain way. That's what a flag is going to allow us to do. It's like arguments. So in this case, we want to type in ls-lah, like I did yesterday. That's going to give everything in a list format. It's going to show all hidden files, and it's going to be in a human-readable format. So me, just because I've done it so much, I never just type ls usually. I'm almost always typing ls-lah. I'm just used to it. Also, sometimes you can do aliases. Yeah, so the command, they've actually aliased LA to list all the files, which includes all the hidden ones. So LA is something that they did, they created an alias for. So you could have LAH, you can make your own commands. You could type llama, and it'll do whatever command you want it to do, okay? So you'll notice here we have -- help. That works in most programs or most commands. Or you can type in what? And if you wanted to see the manual file for this, for ls. Exactly. You would be able to type it in and see the manual for ls. So let's type in man ls. So then it's going to tell us a little bit about it. And if I hit down, I'm able to go through and read all the different things. When I'm done, I hit Q, and that'll quit me out. Okay, so that's how you go through the man page and find different options and switches and flags. So we did that. What directional arrow key would we use to navigate down the manual page? Down, exactly. That was a tough one. The hardest one there. What flag would we use to output in a human readable way? -H. And how did you find that information?
I read it up there. In the manual.
In the manual page, yep. That's where that information is found. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the actual file system itself. Now, what was the hint that I gave you regarding these tables? Obviously, you want to read it, but you can Control-C those, and you can put them over in your notes. Now, I'm doing a drawing, so it's probably not going to let me paste those. Yeah, but if you were in just a regular Google Doc, it would allow you to paste those in there, okay? So let's go through these. Touch. What does touch do? It creates a file. So it is exactly what you said. You are the user. You reach out and touch something, and it just becomes real. Okay. So if we want to create a log file, we would just type in touch and then the name of it. So touch and then log. Make directory. mkdir. What's that going to do? It's going to make a directory or create a directory. So if we wanted to create a new folder called foo with a file called bar inside, what would we type in here? Folder is foo, file is bar. So what's the first command? We need to create the directory of foo. It's a directory. Would it be touch?
No, make directory.
Correct. So we do foo, and then we would change directories into that, right?
Yep.
And now what's the next one?
Touch.
And then we want to type touch bar. So now we have bar inside of foo. Okay. So from there we have CP. What does CP do? Copies the file. So what's the difference between copying a file and moving a file? Yeah, so copy is I'm going to clone it over to here, where move, I'm going to pick up the clone and put the clone over here. Like I'm going to take whatever it is here and move it there, okay? So two totally different things and could possibly mess you up if you move something instead of copying it. RM, what does RM do? Removes, exactly. And what does the file do?
Determines the type of file.
Exactly. So if we want to know, and if you noticed, if we looked in the, let's see, CD TryHackMe. So if we look inside here, we have no idea what these files are, right? There's no file extensions on them. So we have no way of telling what they are. That's why the file command is so important, because we can say, for example, file important. Now notice what I did there. I hit tab. Tab auto-completes your command for you. That'll help with some of your misspellings, okay? Just start typing it and hit tab. If it's not the one that you want, maybe there's two, like my file, for example, tab again, and it'll go to the next one over, okay? So in this case, I did a file important, and I can see that is ASCII text, okay? So it's just a regular text file. Okay, so what are our questions? So we did a little bit of copying there, a little bit of moving. How would you create the file named new note? We want to touch, and then new note. Let's see if that's correct. Excellent. Now, it's worth noting, new note, noting. It's worth noting that Linux is case sensitive. My file, all lowercase, is different than my file, all caps. They could actually be right next to each other, and they would be two totally different files, okay? So if you're ever having issues not being able to open a certain folder, or whatever's in that folder doesn't look like what it should be, see if there's some that are very similar, okay? You want to make sure that you are in the correct one and it is case sensitive. On the deployable machine, what is the file type of unknown one? So how would we find that out?
You just enter it in. Put file in front of it.
So type in file and then unknown one, right? And that is also ASCII text. So we'll come over here, ASCII, ASCII text, and submit. Bada bing, bada boom. How would we move the file, my file, to the my folder directory? Well, my file, and then my folder, right? Good. What are the contents of that actual file? How would we find that out? What would we type in here? So we type in cat, my. Now look here. I'm hitting tab, and there's two options, right? So I hit tab again, and it tells me that I have two different options. So as soon as I put the next character in there, which is I, in this case, it'll actually autocomplete. So we can see that our flag in this case is THM, curly braces, file system, and curly braces. Submit. Woohoo! Okay, permissions 101. This is super important for you guys to understand is how permissions work. This is actually we're going to go over this in much more depth. Like this was just very much scratching the surface. This is just explaining how to see what the permissions are. So if we go ahead and look at, let's see what's in this folder that we can take a look at. Okay. So in this case, I just did an ls/lah of all these files. And remember, what does -l do on an ls command? It lines everything up. So it's going to give me this list, right? What does a do?
It's
All. It means I can see all of them, including the hidden files. And then h. That's the tough one. Human readable. So that means I can see, like, these are kilobits, and then if it was a large file, you'd see the megabits there. Okay, so if I look at the important file, you'll notice that it looks different than the other ones, right? It has user2 and user2 here. This is telling you who is the owner and who is the group, okay? So user2 is both the owner and the group of these. And then over here we have permissions. So these permissions determine who has access to it. A little r is going to be read, a w is going to be write, and if there's an x there, you see how there's an x there? That means executable. That means if it's like a program, it's allowed to open, or in this case, this is a directory, so it's able to open. The little d that's right there in front of all these, that's telling you that it's a directory, okay? So take note of these permissions because they are important. So let's say we wanted to change important, okay? Let's say we wanted to change the permissions. We would type in ch, and then if we wanted to change the ownership, we would do chownw or chown, and then the name of the file, important. If it's going to let me. TryHackMe. That's the only one I have control over. So I'd have to go into that user. So yeah, when we go into that user, we'll do the ownership. Chmod is going to be able to change our. It's going to allow us to change our permissions here. So let's say we wanted that my file. So we see this my file here. We wanted to make this executable. We're going to do chmod plus x, means we're adding the executable to it. And then we'll finish it with the my file. So now when I do it, and I look at my file, I see how it's turned green now? And now it's executable. Okay? So if this is a program, and this is something you're going to have to do with your batch files when we learn scripting, is you have to make them executable. So adding that plus x is going to be a necessary step for you to be able to run your commands. Okay? Read, write, execute. Cool. Okay. So another one that you're going to use a lot is su, okay? Which is switch user. So this and sudo you're going to use quite a bit. So sudo is super user do. So that's like you have a command, but you need to run the command as root, and just that command. You would type in sudo. I'll give you an example. You would type in sudo first, and it would force the computer to. So sudo make me a sandwich. Okay. So prime example here. If we make me a sandwich, what? Make it yourself. Sudo make me a sandwich. Okay. So they can't do anything about it. You said sudo. Like you're putting that trump card down. Like in this case, I am the man or woman of the house, and I want you to make me a sandwich. Okay. So that's the idea of sudo. But now next command that comes back, if you said get me a glass of water, you would get the what? Make it yourself until you typed in sudo, and then you'd have to type in sudo. Get me a glass of water. And this is if you're a regular user, so like the TryHackMe user. If I'm logged in as root, I'm not going to have to type this in because I'm already the super user. I am already God of this computer. Okay.
That's a super command for somebody who's not a super user.
Correct. Yep. And you shouldn't really ever log in as root. That's a big security no-no. You should always just elevate when you need to, and then it'll go back to just normal commands. And again, as you do this stuff, as you're in Linux kind of daily, this will just become, again, second nature to you guys. Okay. On the deployable machine, who is the owner of important? We just answered that one? Yes, it is.
Both the owner and the group.
Yep. What would the command be to switch the user to user2? Su user2. Now, if I wanted to if I wanted to go to that user's home directory, what switch would I put on there? Like right now, if I type in su user2, it's going to take me to /home/TryHackMe. Okay. Now if I super user back to TryHackMe, we do it again. What was the flag? Like we could type in. Remember? Oops. Why isn't it working? So let me clear the screen so I can show you the difference. So I'm going to jump back into TryHackMe, right? So now if I just went, notice where we're at right now, /home/user2. If I just did a switch user to user2, typed in user2 as the password, it's going to take me back to home user2. Okay? So we'll go back to TryHackMe. But now we do su-l user2. It should drop the actual session. Yep, it takes us to the actual, back to the home directory. So with that switch on there, it'll take you to the home directory of whoever that user actually is. But we were already there, so there's nowhere for it to go. What command would we use to switch? So it would be su user2. Okay. Now we're switched to user2. Output the contents of the important file. So I have to get back to that file. Where's that file located? Okay, I'm going to do ls. I'm back to root. I changed directory to root, by the way. So now I have to go into home, right? Because that's where that file lives, is in the TryHackMe home folder. So cd into TryHackMe. And then we have, what would I type in to output the contents of important? Exactly. Meow. And we can see that it's thm, curly brace, su underscore user2, bada bing, bada boom, submit. Cool. Okay, common directories. So these are the most common directories that we're going to have access to or we're going to mess around with. etc is going to be where a lot of the system files are located. So if we're doing any privilege escalation, which means we're trying to go from a standard user like TryHackMe into a root user, we're going to be looking at things that are system level files. Okay. The next one down is /var or variable. This is data that's constantly moving. So like firewall logs are going to be in here, system logs are going to be in here, text documents that are constantly being updated by the system. Everything is a file or a folder in Linux. Okay, so those files are constantly changing, similar to like a Google Doc would change when you type stuff into it. That's how the files are as well, and they would all live in the /var. So /var/log is where you're going to find most of your log files. /root, that's the home folder of the root user. That's an easy one. And what do we think /tmp is? Temporary. That's where your temporary files go. A lot of times you can, when you get into a machine, you can look in that temporary folder for two things. Things that people like downloaded and saved there because it's a temporary file, or you might find that that has read and write access to it for everybody because it's a temporary folder, which means we can drop some code in there in order to get like a reverse shell or get remote access to that, that folder itself. Okay, so that's a very common one for us to launch attacks from, is the TMP if it's not configured properly. Okay, so what is the directory that we would expect the logs to be stored in? This is variable data. /var/log. Boom. What is the root directory that is similar to how RAM on a computer works? /temp. Yep. Remember, memory is just temporary storage before it can be either saved to the hard drive or computed. Name the home directory of the root user. Home directory of the root user. It's not in /home. It is in /root. Yes, yes, yes. Yes, 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 yes. Now apply your learning and navigate through these directories. Awesome. Conclusions and summary. I feel concluded and summarized. So today we learned how to connect to a Linux machine remotely using SSH. We learned the advantage of using commands by adding flags and switches, and you can go to the man page to find those. And we learned very little bit about file permissions and switching users. Again, we're going to dig deep into permissions and stuff as we get that deep dive into Linux. Right now, we're just skimming the surface as it pertains to just being another operating system. Like, you guys are pretty good with Windows, pretty good with Chrome, pretty good with even like iPhone and Android, but Linux is probably the weakest, so that's why we're kind of getting you more up to speed with it. So next, we're going to do Linux Fundamentals 3, but we are going to do that. That's going to kick off tomorrow. Did I miss some? Did I not hit complete where I was supposed to? I want my like pomp and circumstance. Give me my pomp and circumstance.
Maybe.
Woo! There it is.